Hello, it's Randi Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randirhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.
Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
Hey. It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
We have new breaking news tonight about who is behind Donald Trump Jr.'s evolving story about that meeting with a Russian lawyer at Trump Tower. The Washington Post tonight is reporting when the story broke, the story about that meeting that Donald Trump Jr. had with the Russian attorney, the president's advisors talked about how Trump Jr. should respond, and the strategy was to be truthful so the account couldn't be criticized if and when the full details came out. According to the Washington Post, that plan changed because, according to the Post, the president himself personally dictated the statement claiming that the meeting was about the adoption of Russian children.
Oh, no.
As we know, that statement turned out to be false. As emails released by Trump Jr. showed, released only because that story was about to break, the meeting actually was an offer to give the Trump team damaging information about Hillary Clinton as part of the Russian government effort to help the Trump campaign.
You're a genius.
Oh, he's such a genius. Happy, what is it? American Dream Week, everybody. How's that going for you? How's American Dream Week going for you? I have a dream today.
Believe me.
Yeah. So it's American Dream Week, and the week before this one was American Heroes Week. And the week before this one was Made in America Week, hosted by Ivanka and her Chinese Bangladeshi shoemakers. Oh my God! It won't stop. It's not going to stop until we get this guy out of the Oval. It's like out of my ovum. You know what I mean? Out of my ovaries, out of my uterus, he's up in there, and I feel it. And I feel like I'm aging, right before your very eyes, in a good way. But just, I could feel, it's like every day is a year and a half now. And, what they really need at the White House, they need like a no chaos week, like instead of American Hero. But they will never do a no chaos week because the irony of it on day one, on Monday, will be like off the hook crazy. So, I mean, look, we live through Friday news dumps. We live through Monday, breaking news now, the Washington Post, New York Times. It's almost like a race, the Washington Post or the New York Times. They're like, hey, Washington Post, you got Nixon. New York Times, we're getting Trump. It's amazing. But here we have a story. There's two really sick, twisted, mind-blowing stories today. Okay, two of them, and they're both not the easiest story in the world. I think the first one that we'll get into, I think this one. I hope you know this one, because if you don't know this one, that means you don't watch TV, you don't watch news, and you don't read a newspaper. And that would be so damn depressing for me, because you really need to read a newspaper these days. And like I said, I don't care which one. You could read the Wall Street Journal, and even go to the opinion page now, because they are writing op-eds, these Republicans, going, we were duped. The Republican Party's got to have a come to Jesus moment about this guy. He is, there's something wrong here. There can be Peggy Noonan. He's Woody Allen without the humor. That's the Wall Street Journal opinion page. So, but it's a good newspaper. The Washington Post, great. New York Times, gotta read. Gotta read. Turns out these two stories both have to do with, wait for it, everybody,
You've got Russia.
No, you've got Russia, Sean, and you've always had it. Okay? Both of these stories are about the cover-up having to do with Russia hacking. And then there's a third story that's just hysterical. That has to do with hacking. Okay? But the first story, it turns out that Donald Trump Jr., he had that meeting on June 9th, right, with Natalia Veselnitskaya, with a Russian intelligence operative, ex-KGB. You're never an ex-KGB, right? And with Manafort. I mean, it turned out there were 8 people in this meeting. And as the story unfolded, the New York Times broke the story. And as the story unfolded, we were getting statement after statement after statement, supposedly from Junior, in the name of transparency. And then we find out there was no name of transparency in Junior's mind. There was the New York Times calling Junior going, listen, come clean now because we have your first two statements. And frankly, you know what? We have the emails. We have them and we're going to publish them. And so we're letting you publish them first. And if you don't, that's not a problem. We'll publish them tomorrow. And that's when we got the email that clearly showed that there was a meeting that was discussed on June 3rd. It was confirmed on June 6th. On June 7th, the president of the on the campaign trail, the next president of the United States was still campaigning for that job. He goes on the campaign trail on June 7th and says, oh, guess what? Tomorrow I'm going to have dirt on Hillary, or next week I'll have dirt on Hillary Clinton. That's because the meeting was, according to the emails, to give the Trump campaign dirt on Hillary Clinton. And then June 9th, the meeting happens. Okay. Well, it turns out that, Donald Trump Jr. Put out that first false statement, that piece of swill, that lie, that it was just an introductory meeting. I didn't know the names of the people that were coming into Trump Tower, right? And he was already the Republican nominee. I didn't know the names. Like I said, he's got the worst doorman in the history of doormen at Trump Tower. Nobody bothers to announce anybody. Natalia Vessel and this guy, 1 second, please. Let me just do a quick Google search and see who I'm meeting with. No. And of course, Jared Kushner's team was the leak. Everybody's going, well, how'd they get the emails? How'd they get the emails? Jared Kushner is how they got the emails. Because Jared Kushner was being investigated because he lied on his clearance forms about contacts he had with Russians. He didn't report that he had any. And his legal team was going through his reportage, his calendar, and they found many instances where Jared was talking to a Russian ambassador or blah, blah, blah. But then they come across this June 9th meeting. And they tell Jared, oh, my God, what is this meeting? Why didn't you ever report this meeting? And he said, oh, yeah, well, it was boring or whatever. And I just wandered in. I'm so busy that I didn't have time to read the whole email chain. What? What did you just say? Well, I didn't have time to read the whole email chain. What email? Lawyers don't like email chains. And that is when Jared turned over the email chain that clearly showed that this meeting was being discussed for 6 days, confirmed on June 6th. June 7th, daddy-in-law goes out and says, next week I'm going to have dirt on Hillary Clinton. And Jared wanders into this meeting, not really knowing what it's about. He's so busy, he doesn't even have time to read an email chain. And so he just wanders into meetings with Russian operatives. And now he's the secretary of everything. I feel good. Turns out that first release came from Donald Trump, who swore up and down, across the ceiling and down the other wall, all day, every day, since we found out about these emails from Jared's legal team. People say, oh, Jared and Ivanka, they're not the leakers. Really? Really? I think they are. But anyway, Trump said he didn't know about the meeting, never heard about the meeting. The first time he heard about it was when he saw the emails in the New York Times stories, blah, blah, blah. Turns out that when Trump was at the G20 meeting, which was July 7th and 8th, they were consumed with how to deal with what Jared's lawyers found. And that Jared was about to report. They were consumed with it. How do I protect Junior? What do we do? Why will you, what do we say? Well, just say it's an introductory. And on the plane back from Germany, the New York Times tells them, we're going to go ahead and publish the story that this meeting happened. We know about. And Trump huddles on Air Force One. Junior's not on the plane. Ivanka is. And Trump, the Dick-Tator, dictates his version of events, which had to be correct and had to comport with the emails that Jared and the New York Times were about to release. So Trump did know about this meeting. He knew about it. And he is the person that issued this misleading, contradictory, poorly drafted statement on behalf of and in the name of Donald Trump Jr. Now, I I sort of suspected that, Trump knew about this meeting, and I sort of suspected that he was the one that issued the statement in the first place because it was so poorly drafted, it was so, contradictory, and it was so misleading. But then again, everything was spelled correctly, so, you said, maybe it wasn't Trump. Maybe it was Junior. I mean, I was willing to give Junior the credit. I was willing to say he could lie and screw things up on his own, but apparently, no, he needs Daddy's help for that, too. Sad. Exclamation point. So Trump comes up with a story that completely falls apart and exposes him to legal jeopardy. Because this would be obstruction of justice in the Russia investigation. This would be a false report, okay, so that Donald Trump could hide Junior's meeting with Russian spies. Now, all Donald Trump does his entire life is lie, and he still sucks at it. So please, somebody, tell me what you think this man is good at. He's good at inheriting money, and he's good at bullying. Those two things said, please tell me what you think he's good at. Draining the swamp. He keeps bringing in these people, and then he turns around and fires them. These are his best people. He knows all the best people. He knows all the best words, right? So between the best words and the best people, this man is issuing misleading, contradictory, poorly drafted statements and hiring misleading, contradictory, poorly put together people like Anthony Scaramucci. Here's his 11 days.
Oh, you can't hear me? I'm sorry. Better now?
The president has also appointed Anthony Scaramucci as communications director.
I'm going to spend a couple of weeks getting to know the people here.
I don't know who this anonymous person is, it said. But it is the unanimous...
How about it was the president?
Oh, okay, man.
It's the consensus of the intelligence community.
So here's what's going to happen.
Donald Trump is not elite.
We're going to move on.
The business side or the politics side or the inheritance side. What part of Donald Trump? Many people in the UK don't understand that.
There's so many things about the president.
He's a celebrity.
How about
He's
the
a billionaire.
cheeseburgers? How about the pizza that we're...
Everyone eats cheeseburgers and pizzas. What are you talking about?
This was a humdinger, day 189 of the Trump administration, and the fighting inside this White House has blown up yet again in public.
Anthony Scaramucci, the president's new communications director, gave a profanity-filled interview to the New Yorker magazine, unleashing attacks on two senior White House officials.
Telling a reporter from the New Yorker, Reince is a expletive paranoid schizophrenic, a paranoiac.
He's very passionate about the president's agenda, and I think he may have let that get the best of him in that conversation.
Good day, everyone. We're breaking in with news of another shakeup for the Trump administration.
That President Trump has removed Anthony Scaramucci as his communications director.
How long has he been in the job, Scaramucci? The mooch has been in the job like a week and some change.
Wow, he's only been there for about a week, and you can hear the reaction in this studio right now.
He does not have a role at this time in the Trump administration.
Thank you.
What I say is what I say.
Oh, man. He keeps bringing in these people and then firing these people, and then he insists he's draining the swamp, but he's filling the swamp up with his very own creatures, his very own alligators, his very own, leeches, his very own swamp animals. I don't know what else grows in a swamp. This is what he does. But, okay, so now the one thing that it turns out that Donald Trump is hands-on about is hiring really stinky people and firing them with the Cobra. You're fired. You're fired. You're fired. Right? He's good at that. And then there's another thing that he seems to be very, very good at, and that's the detailed work of obstructing justice. He's very good at it. Now, here's my question. For those of you who still go, we don't care about this. We don't care about this didn't happen. It's fake news. The next story is fake news. Okay. And we'll go right to the source of all fake news and expose that today and show you how fake news is fake news and how it's created and who's creating it and why. But legally speaking, you have a president who just exposed himself unnecessarily to obstruction of justice charges. He exposed himself, everybody. Ew. Ew. And so his position is now that he doesn't think that he could get in trouble for the cover-up because he hasn't done anything wrong. So does he ever ask himself why he's covering everything up and why he keeps on, getting himself in trouble? If there really is nothing that Mueller is going to find. Oh, the last thing I said before I went to sleep last night, for about 2.5 minutes I slept last night. I don't know why. It was one of those things, one of those nights. But the last thing I said before I actually did get like 2.5 minutes of sleep was, come on, Mueller. Come on, Mueller. If he thinks Mueller's got a big, empty, nothing burger, and who came up with that phrase? That was the most annoying part of this whole story. Nothing burger. They got a nothing burger. It's a nothing burger.
You've got Russia.
Then why is he going through such extreme lengths to cover everything up? Go to RandiRhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.